Hello there. Welcome to Push Your Glasses Up. I'm Mikey. We are going over Obi-Wan Kenobi today, the 6-episode limited series from Disney+. Today I'm joined once again by entertainment journalist Eammon Jacobs. He has joined me from across the pond to discuss this Space Wizards television show. Before we get to that, just a reminder, if you enjoy the videos on the YouTube channel, click the like button, subscribe. It helps me out a great deal. We just got over 100 subscribers this past week. It helps for the channel to keep growing. We also have, if you prefer, the audio only feed on podcast services, so you can check that out as well and, you know, get us on the go. But now let's jump into Kenobi. Eammon, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me again, and for Star Wars as well. We're staying on theme.
Yeah, it definitely makes it easy when I like pocket people in. Rena comes back for the Marvel movies. The Marvel shows have mostly been my buddy Cash. It's been easy finding people to be like, this one's you, this one's you, this one's you. But yeah, what did you think about this here Obi-Wan Kenobi show?
As a whole, I really enjoyed it. I think it delivers on its promise. It gives you that old grizzled Obi-Wan. Does it do it perfectly? No, unfortunately not. But, you know, if we're just talking pure entertainment value, it's there. If you're talking from a fan perspective, there are so many things you can sort of pick at. But I really enjoyed it at a base level. Yeah, what about you?
I am on the same page as you. I thoroughly enjoy this. I particularly think it is an upswing as you get further into the show. It does the traditional Disney Plus show thing of like first 2 episodes is Act 1, Act 2 is the middle, and Act 3 is the end. And I think the first act is good, but there are glaring not even like structurally story things that I have issues with, but like production wise stuff of like this wasn't shot necessarily as well as I would hope it would be. Like a chase scene, and I think is a little
every so often
the
visual effects
but
ships
that is
are just a little bit oof.
I
ropey.
do, and there was some of that in the finale with compositing of a character against an environment, but that's kind of stuff I tend to overlook more than like, because like computers can only do so much on a limited time frame and budget. Like for me, that's I always am fine being like whatever. I let myself imagine it looking a little bit better. But things like when a child is being chased and it looks like a Benny Hill kind of like it doesn't look like it's actually tense because it's just a bunch of people fumbling around trying to catch this child, where it's like you cut out for a second. I don't know what you said.
A branch, really?
Yeah.
Come on.
They
ran into a branch. It was ridiculous.
That would be fine if it was shot better. That's the thing. You can add tension to a thing like that.
Fell to the floor, and it was like an actual impact, then sure, fine.
Yeah.
But the easiest way to describe that whole chase is Power Rangers Putty Patrol.
Yeah, it's very much in the vein of that. So, we'll time code it here for like now. We'll talk about the spoilers because we're getting close anyway. So,
we are.
This is sort of an issue I have throughout the show. Is it begins with this cat and mouse of Leia being chased by Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It is, which he's playing basically like the character he played in Back to the Future, which I love. He's playing Needles. But yeah, it starts with that chase scene, but then it does this weird, and other Star Wars shows have done this too, where it's like, why are you lingering on a character? Like, I have to go over here now, and they like, it takes 4 seconds for them to get out of frame. Like Obi-Wan does that later on when he is first confronted by Vader, where he's trying to hide in the quarry area, and it's I just don't understand why they keep doing, like, Black Chrysanthemum did this in Book of Boba Fett, where he's just like, all right, later, and then you see him jog for a little bit. It's like, you don't have to show that. Just cut away. You can see him
just do it.
Watch him turn and then cut. That's it. That's all you have to do.
It's like the Liam Neeson school of how to jump over a fence, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you know, a million different cuts to show something really simple. And like, I think the action as a whole, there are moments of greatness in there, and there are moments where I was like, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. But then there could be such a much more dynamic way of shooting some of these duels and some of the like gunfights that they just steer away from in a way that's maddening, when we've had The Mandalorian, which has had like some of the best Star Wars fights in live action, for me anyway. And it was just a little bit like, really? You're just going to have that one person static and just sort of turn around in a 360 motion? All right, sure, I guess.
And I wonder how much of that comes down to, because like this is shot less on the volume, but it's still on the volume. So I wonder how much of that is because of them trying to figure out, like, Deborah Chow did Mando season 2 stuff, and so she should be a little familiar with it, but maybe she's still getting her footing with that kind of setup, which is totally fine. Like, for me, the action stuff, it again got better as the season went on. Particularly these last 2 episodes, I think, are where the best stuff is. And even in that, you can see it's a little bit like when they do the flashback scene in the penultimate episode, in episode 5, to what is kind of, it's like right after episode 2. That's going to get confusing. Right after Attack of the Clones. Maybe shouldn't have named everything episode 1, episode 2, episode 3.
Yeah.
Which I get what they were doing. They were setting it up so that like it was actually like a coinciding thing happens in each episode of the TV show that matches the corresponding episode of the series of movies. But yeah, like the flashback sort of duel that they're having, the practice duel that they're having, is very, very cool, but it's a little jittery. And I think that's partially on purpose in that situation, because I think they're trying to capture, like, we think of like Revenge of the Sith and Phantom Menace and stuff where there's like really cool fight choreography, but when you like dive into it, it does get a little like flourishy and not real. So I think that was them trying to pull back a little bit on the flourishy thing, and so it causes it to feel a little more stumbly than it should, but they're purposefully trying to pull back just enough to like bring it towards the world that we're in now for Star Wars. And yeah, it's, I think once you get to like, the whole journey is important, but like it's really all about episodes 4, like 3, 4, and 5, but really 4 and 5 for the most part.
Yeah, I think the end of 3,
yeah,
personally, is where it starts to really ramp up, especially in terms of like the story and the themes, because like, you know, the first 2 it's old Obi-Wan, PTSD, he's struggling to come to terms with everything that he's been through, which, you know, as it's kind of understandable considering, you know, he left his best friend / brother to burn to death.
Yeah.
And I really liked seeing that, but that second episode I was just a bit like, right, okay, let's kind of get this moving a little bit more. It felt really not sluggish, but it wasn't pacey in the way that I expected it to. But once episode 3 hit, and once it really brings Vader back, I was like, yes.
Yeah, once they're in that small town, that's where it like kicks into high gear. And I think that like pseudo sluggish feeling at the beginning is one of the inherent problems with, I like that they structure these sort of mini seasons of these shows as an act 1, act 2, act 3, because it's just like, okay, we know it's a contained story and we know that that's like traditional storytelling. Perfect. It means you don't have to worry about like, did I miss something on an episode, whatnot. But there is an inherent problem when you stretch that over the span of 5 or 6 weeks, because you're making a thing that perhaps if it like, and I am a proponent of the weekly releases, but I think that this structure may work better as a full drop, or even if it was like you drop episodes 1 through 3 and then 4, 5, 6 rather than 1 and 2. I would have
been happy with 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6.
Right, yeah.
Like I think that would have been a really nice structure, because then you do get that sort of rhythmic feel to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the small town stuff in episode 3 was really well done, and arguably, like for me, that's the scariest Vader's been. I think it depends on the day. Sometimes I'm like Rogue One ending. Sometimes I'm like episode 3, because it's the neck snap.
I think
like that's horrific.
I think that this is Rogue One is him like running wild for the first time in live action, so it's like so impactful. But he's going up against rebel soldiers who know what they're in for. In this, in this, it's way more terrifying, because he's just killing random people, and that's like
just innocent civilians just getting dragged out of their houses. Like it's awful,
and that makes it
the so
differential.
Intense.
Yeah, that is the differential, because it is like it's intense when he is chopping down these people who are trying to get the plans, but like. Yeah, it's when you make it about innocence, it's always going to be a more intense situation. So yeah, I do think
it works a treat though, doesn't it? Like it really ramps up the stakes, because Obi-Wan's like, I can't not do anything.
Yeah,
and it's it's smart from Vader's perspective, because he's like he's kind of forced him into
he's smoking
into
him
a
out.
Checkmate at this point. Yeah. And I just, again, the editing of Obi-Wan being chased by Vader was a little bit naff, like you said. But Vader being like Michael Myers, I'm 100% down for that. That was so cool. Like, just him, like, just surprising him by the side. I was like, yes. Give me a whole episode like that, quite frankly. Like, I'd have loved it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's like, that's the thing is, as much as the editing on some of those things is a little bit rough, I think overall the editing was great. It was just it was like a shot is a problem here, and a shot is a problem here. Whereas like when you put it in the puzzle, it's not that big of a deal, but like they do stand out a little bit if you choose to focus on them, where it's just like,
if you just sit and watch, that it works.
Yeah,
it does
exactly.
Just work.
But because of the way my brain works, I go like, that shot should have been like 2 seconds shorter, and it wouldn't have come across goofy, So it's yeah.
No, I completely sympathize, but I just Star Wars rhymes as a whole, and that episode for me was just it instantly just took me back to being 12 watching Revenge of the Sith and being utterly terrified.
You just made me feel so old.
Sorry.
I was 21 when that movie came out in theaters. Yeah. That's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I think that this series not just bridges the story, it bridges tones of different eras, and not just of live action. There is stuff in the finale that feels like it's Filoni doing an episode of Clone Wars. When the helmet's cracked and you actually see his eye, like that is Rebels right there is exactly what that, and it's unbelievable how they managed to capture these different eras tones and blend them together, because they are very disparate things. When like the original trilogy feels different than the prequels, feels different than the animated stuff, except for, I would say, in Attack of the Clones, the sequence where C-3PO is going through the factory, that is literally just like a Clone Wars episode. So that is the most one-to-one comparison I would give it. But yeah, like the fact that they managed to do something that even the other Star Wars shows I don't think have quite found, with balancing those tones out, is sort of a miracle.
Yeah. And just to add to that, like the moment in the finale, just to jump ahead a little bit, when Obi-Wan raises all the rocks behind him, that to me felt perfect Clone Wars. Like that felt something, maybe Rebels rather than Clone Wars, actually.
But not even just that. It also like that ties into everything. That's Luke training on Dagobah. That is Rey in The Last Jedi. Like that is it just finds these, and that goes beyond tone even at that point. That is then the cyclical, I can't speak right now. The cycle of storytelling that Star Wars does. It captures that perfectly, and it is sort of like an over the top, like dumb thing, if you want to look at it that way, to like see him, you know, really space wizard shooting rockets or rocks at somebody. It feels like you're playing a video game a little bit, but like
But that's to paraphrase, cool. Patrick Willems, this is a movie about space wizards for children.
Yeah.
I'm completely fine with that.
Yeah. As it should be. But I think that's and I got into this discussion a little bit with my buddy Ryan when he was on talking about the Jurassic movies, where it's just like, I think people do take it a little too seriously, where it's like, I will get in my head about like some of the editing stuff, but it's just like, dude, that was like really cool action on top of a really emotional moment, and it's just like, that's all I needed. Like that face off was the thing that they were promising, and it was done really well. That was probably Hayden Christensen's best performance in that like little time when the helmet is broken and you have the voice changing between James Earl Jones's voice and his. And yeah, it is stunning how they managed to pull that part off, honestly. And it shouldn't be like, some of the best stuff in Star Wars TV has been like a specific episode, like pulls something off like that, where it's like, that one episode of Book of Boba Fett is just like, which is, Mandalorian season 2.1. But like, that is a tremendous Star Wars thing to exist. This is another one of those things where it's just like, this is a tremendous Star Wars thing that exists. So I'm very happy.
I guess it comes down to like how it makes you feel in the moment. Like, as you were saying about the editing stuff, it really doesn't matter as long as they get you like in the feels. Doesn't matter. And this morning when I watched it first thing and he lifted those rocks and he slashed his helmet, my jaw dropped, and I was a kid again. And that's really what it's about, isn't it? That's what everybody kind of wants out of these things. Is to feel like a kid again and feel like they're stepping into that universe for the first time again. Do I think it's a shame that it took us 6 episodes to really hit that sort of point? Yes. But it had some really fascinating moments throughout that, you just wouldn't have got if this was a movie like it was originally planned pre-Solo. So for me, it's another happy landing.
Yeah. I'm in the same page. I will point out that please make Solo 2, please. It's a good movie. It
needs more credit, personally. I enjoy it.
It's sure it maybe wasn't what everybody wanted, but it was, until we started getting the Disney Plus shows, it felt the most like an extended universe novel that I read in the 90s. Like, it gave me that. So yeah.
Fun fact, it was shot down the road from me.
is that Pinewood?
No, there was a disused factory outside of Southampton.
Okay.
That doubled for Corellia at the start. I could have worked on Solo, but I went home for the summer.
I was supposed to be in 2016's Ghostbusters, but couldn't get a car over to where I was supposed to go.
Gutted.
I know the scene I was supposed to be in too. It's a real bummer. But yeah,
my friend was in charge of making sure that nobody walked past the camera when Solo does the Tokyo drift around the corner. Yeah,
that's
gutted. But anyway, Kenobi.
Yeah, Kenobi. But yeah, I'm pretty thrilled with if they can manage to, as much as this has a couple of lows, if they can manage this level for stuff moving forward, and it doesn't need to have the high highs of this either. It just needs to find the balance a little bit more between the low and the high. If they can manage that, I'm pretty enthused for where the future stuff like the Acolyte and stuff can go. It can't be as unbalanced as, say, like the Book of Boba Fett was. I prefer season 1 of The Mandalorian more than season 2, just because I loved the lone wolf and cub nature of like Monster of the Week style storytelling. And that's because it is like that's the basis of Star Wars, is old serials. So I kind of enjoyed that they were going back to that. I do understand that they had to like start fleshing out lore a little bit more with it and had to change that up for season 2. But I think if they can pull back to that a little bit more, and find that balance, I think that the future of these shows is very, very bright. It's just there needs to be some sort of they gotta. This is cliche as all hell, but they do need their Kevin Feige. Like they need somebody, and sure they have Filoni and Favreau, but like
yeah.
But I don't think that they were really like saying no on stuff, and I think that that's where Feige does. He lets people explore, but says like, no, we can't do that. And I think Robert Rodriguez was allowed to go way Robert Rodriguez, which is like, oh, well and good, that's fine, but like that means it's going to pull away from everything else that we've already experienced a little bit more. Where Boba Fett was its best was when it was just exploring like those first couple episodes, to me, as much as like the final battle was fun with the Rancor and whatnot, but like the first 2-ish episodes where he is exploring becoming a new person with the Tusken Raiders, like that is a fascinating story. And then it just became this weird like gang control thing, and it's just like that became a little generic to me after you start out with a strong idea. Even if it wasn't executed perfectly, it was a strong concept, and I think they need to find that where they can like weigh the scales a little bit of like concept and execution need to come together a little bit more.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Kenobi does that in some really interesting ways. So I was really fascinated by the path to the sort of network of like Jedi smugglers, Force sensitive smugglers. I thought that was like a really interesting addition to the universe, because I kind of very
real history stuff going on.
Definitely. Railroad-esque, you know. And I kind of want to see
the smuggling of Jewish people during the Holocaust,
Of course. And I was fast, like the whole bit when he's in the safe house and he's looking at the wall and there's all the carvings. I was like, this is great. This is something really interesting. And that kind of reminded me of like the Tusken Raider stuff, where it's just a tiny bit of universe expansion that doesn't necessarily have a massive impact on the Tuskens impact the story, but like not in the grand scheme of things.
Right. It doesn't affect the universe, it affects the character.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I loved that. But then contrasting that against something like the Inquisitorius, which should have been something incredible. Quite frankly, you know, because of how they'd used in Rebels and Fallen Order, I was really excited to see them in live action. In fact, that was probably one of the things I was most excited about going into Kenobi, was seeing like the Grand Inquisitor and like the third brother. And I just kind of feel we were a bit shortchanged with that, to be honest.
With the Grand Inquisitor, yes, I will agree with that. I think Reva's story is actually quite good in the fact that it, like, Obi-Wan needed redemption, and the mission he was on to save Leia is not going to give him the redemption of feeling guilty about letting the younglings die on that day. So I think that story specifically works very well for what they're doing with the Inquisitors. I think that where that leaves them with like what to do with the Grand Inquisitor was, yes, I totally understand. Like, it's a little bit underwhelming and a little bit sidelined of like, all right, well,
yeah,
did they need to like pull the charade of killing him and then bringing him back? Like, that was a little unnecessary.
It was pointless.
Yeah.
I completely agree, by the way. Reva's story was, at the start, I kind of wasn't really sure if it was necessary. I liked the fact that she was a youngling. I really liked that. But then in the middle, it just sort of was a bit like, right, okay, what's the point here? But as soon as it kind of became a little bit more obvious why she was doing what she was doing, I thought, okay, that's, you know, there's a bit more to it, at least. There's a bit more depth.
Yeah.
But the Grand Inquisitor stuff, I was just like, it just feels like they're just trying to annoy people for the sake of it, or was it just to establish Reva as this sort of, you know, up and coming, powerful, you know, younger Inquisitor? Which, sure, fine, I guess, but like, it just seemed like a really bizarre choice to make, to be honest.
Yeah, and it seems like it's an unnecessary attempt at tying things to the different era, where it's just like, yeah, the character could have just been in the background of like sending people off. Like, he didn't have to be there in the scenes. He was literally there. And with, on the Reva side, it's I get that people were like, why is she just this like over the top angry character, blah blah blah. But I like, that's what the storytelling is. Like, there is an arc for the character, so it's that thing where literally episode 1 of this show, people were like, what a dumb character. And granted, there were people who were making those complaints for not good reasons, but the people who were just on a reacting to the episode level, who were just like, it's just an angry force user, whatever. But it is to show that there is some sort of place you can find yourself between the rage that is seething in Anakin and the sort of little bit more clandestine version of Obi-Wan that we think of, where she finds herself on the sides of both, or both sides of that fence, and is struggling with that, because obviously she becomes Vader if she continues down that path, and she kind of not becomes Obi-Wan, but like finds herself in that direction a little bit more with the path that is eventually chosen. So I think it is a necessary thing that they needed to show. I think people were not willing to like be patient for that storyline is a big problem, outside of the like ridiculously stupid racist bullshit that was going on top of that, which is like, it's Star Wars, and it is unfortunately like hand in hand with this franchise now is just this group of shitty people that pull that stuff. And that's sort of it, not just Star Wars, it's like most fandoms these days. But it's a bummer that keeps having to happen. I do appreciate that the Star Wars social account is, in general, they are being better about like having a little personality and not just like posting a like here's a link to a thing. Like they're having a little more personality, but on top of that,
they're interacting with the fandom itself. Which I really appreciate, and I really appreciate the fact that they came out and was, the whole cast pretty much came out and was just like, no, shut up, ridiculous, stop being racist, essentially.
Unacceptable behavior. That's like, for them to finally like put like, we can definitely say and criticize like that stuff should have happened before. That stuff should have happened with.
This should have happened, with Kelly. Like this should have happened years ago, basically.
With Kelly and John, and even with Daisy as well. Like there was a lot of stuff going on, and that stuff should have been rebutted earlier on. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad at least they're finally doing it. Like it's I can't give them credit for the past, but I can give them credit now. So yeah,
agreed. But in terms of the story, I really liked where Reva ended up, and I really appreciated the parallels flashing back to Order 66 and her being attacked by Anakin, while she's sort of struggling as to whether to attack and kill Luke, basically. I think a lot of people, I've already seen tweets and stuff online where it's like, well, why does Luke not remember being attacked by a Sith? And it's like, well, he
never saw a lightsaber.
And it was the dark. He never saw a lightsaber.
Yeah, it was just an attacker. That's all he knows. That sequence. Yeah, that sequence, I will say, is where I was talking about in the finale. There is some weird compositing issues when Luke is running along the ridge. That looks fake. That looks very, very that's probably the roughest anything in this show to me had looked. And it was literally just like a little bit of thing in a foreground, a little bit of thing in the background, and then he was just crystal clear. Everything else was very out of focus. He was crystal clear in the shot. So that wasn't spectacular, but that it's a nitpick thing for me at this point.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think the finale did a really solid job of tying a lot of things together, even if it's sort of Return of the King did with several different endings.
But that's the fan service stuff that I think everybody wanted and will make fun of, because they also make fun of the Return of the King. But it's the stuff that despite it being heavy-handed, it's the stuff that we expected before the show was released. That's the stuff. One of the biggest discussions about this show was, is Qui-Gon going to show up? And it's they kept teasing it. They have to show it. Do I love the way that they showed it? Not really. I don't love that he just kind of appeared in as Obi-Wan is wandering off into the sunset. I do think it should have been the
context of his cameo. I like how he's I was always here, you just couldn't. I really liked that. It's once again hammering it home that Obi-Wan has grown. He's accepted everything that's happened in the past. He's finally reconnected to the Force. Do I think it was a bit dumb that he was riding his EOP and then Qui-Gon showed up? That's just weird.
I wish they showed him get to his new hut, where he's this is him on moving day. This is him leaving his cave. And if they just got him to the hut and let him sort of unpack and this is my new life, and have a quiet moment, nighttime, there's he has a small fire and he's cooking food. And in that moment, Qui-Gon shows up. I think that would be a more impactful thing. But then you have the problem.
He's at peace completely.
Exactly. And then you have the problem of you said, the Return of the King thing. It's how long are we going to make this? And I think that is that's going to add another 3 or 4 minutes to something that maybe doesn't need another 3 more minutes. But I think it would have been a little more impactful.
Yeah. Now, I've already seen a few conversations online, and not to name drop my own group chat, about people wanting a season 2. Now, what are your thoughts on that? Because I do not want a season 2 at all.
There's want and need, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want season 2. I don't need season 2. This is a condensed, defined story. And we really don't need to see more adventures of Old Man Obi, right? But I do still kind of want to see it. But there is this thing, I don't know if you noticed this, like, did you not cover, but pay attention to, like, not the big interview stuff from Star Wars Celebration, but like the smaller, like, stage stuff on the show floor?
Covered a little bit of it, yeah.
Okay, so when Ewan McGregor was out on the stage, when this was like, when he wasn't actually scheduled to be out there, when he was like, hey, some people haven't showed up for their autographs. He was like, we're excited for you to see all these episodes, because it was after the first 2 had dropped. And we're excited for you to see episodes 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and then 7. And I'm like, did you just make a goof 'em up? Did you just like accidentally confirm that there's season 2 stuff? And so now there's this thing that's up in the air for me, where it's just like, was he doing that to try to get the fan base riled up in order for them to make more? Because he and Hayden have come out and said that they want to make more.
Yeah,
it's a little bit up in the air for whether or not that was him confirming a thing already existing, or trying to like pressure Lucasfilm into doing some more.
Yeah,
but
I mean, yeah, there was rumors that they'd tweaked the finale to make room for a season 2,
right?
And I can't really see where that would be. I guess you could say Qui-Gon,
right.
Just because he's sort of like, oh, we've got a ways to go. That's clearly an insinuation that he's going to sort of train Kenobi in a bit more of the Force, and like how to commune with the afterlife, and how to become a Force ghost, and all that. But like you say, I don't need a season 2. The whole point of this was like, look, this is how he's going to become the old Jedi that we saw in the original trilogy. And he's done that. Like, he's reconnected with the Force, as I said earlier. He's made his peace with everything. He left Anakin still as a Padawan, and he is still the Master. I don't need another. I don't want to see. As cool as it would be to see Obi-Wan and Maul fight again in live action, we've already had it. It's in Rebels. It's out there. It's done.
Fantastic.
I don't need to, and it's perfect. Yeah. It's just succinct. It doesn't drag it out.
And also, really, if people have not like really paid attention to Rebels that much, or have watched it but not have the context of other stuff, that's like the actors from Rebels talking about it, look up the thing where Sam Witwer is talking about that fight, and he's talking about the postures that Obi-Wan is taking in that fight. Ooh, it's so good. It's I just gave myself chills thinking about Sam Witwer talking about that fight. That's how good it is.
Yeah, but like I don't need to see that. We've got it already, and I think there is an inherent desire to see things from animation put into live action as a way of validating them almost. And I'm guilty of that myself a little bit, because I'd be lying if I said that I didn't want to see Kenobi in some Clone Wars armor. Like, that was the
Easter egg I really wanted. I didn't need him wearing it. I didn't need him wearing it. I just wanted to see him like open a trunk, like when he reaches into, like, when he comes. Yeah. Granted, he takes his lightsaber out of the dunes, but like, if it had been in a trunk in his cave and he was pulling it out of there, I wanted it to be resting on top of the armor. And I think that would have been like a great touch, where it's just like, it's not too heavy-handed, but like still gave it to us.
I wanted to see when we got the flashback of them dueling, which was great, and I loved the way that it framed against the episode.
And also specifically called back to the fight in Revenge of the Sith. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But I really wanted another flashback in the next episode to bookend that with something Clone Wars, but like have a wholesome, really look at their brotherly sort of dynamic.
Like the final time that they talk to each other before Anakin becomes Vader, when they're saying goodbye, old friend. Like, yeah.
But obviously, that didn't happen. We didn't get to see him wear the Clone Wars armor. But obviously in season 2, if that was a thing, it's like where do you go with it? Because you can't do another season of, oh, Vader's found me again, because then it's like when you get to New Hope, it's like, oh well, I saw you like 2 years ago. It's all good.
It would have to be
I've not learned anything since then either.
And that's the thing. Like Hayden Christensen wants a season 2, but it's like you could do a season 2, but you would have to not have it be Vader. It would have to be some sort of other thing going on. And I think it's just it's a bit hard to see a path to that, because it is he's in the place where we find him in the original movie. So
my pitch, if you were going to do a follow-up, would be do Vader as a solo series, draw inspiration from the comics, because the Charles Soule's comics are
fantastic,
like, top notch. Actually brilliant. Draw inspiration from that, and really just go all in and make him a bastard. Like really hammer home how like twisted this guy has become because of what you've just seen in Kenobi.
Yeah, like it's the history that we already know, but like this moment is where like you can push him into that version of him. Yeah,
and that would still give you. There's loads of ways you could do flashbacks to bring back Ewan McGregor, so you almost flip it, and tell the other side, but it's just like the next chapter of it. But yeah, that is basically I don't want Kenobi season 2.
Yeah,
sorry.
And it is
as
like,
much as I love Ewan McGregor, the handsome bugger he is, honestly. But no.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think the thing they set up even more than like flipping it like that is they set up following Reva's path to redemption at this point. So I think that's the more not compelling, because like obviously it's easy to fall for the nostalgia for compelling, but like the more compelling is in terms of like seeing a fresh thing, even though it's a story of redemption, which we've seen like a million times, but like it's a more compelling newer version of that, as opposed to like more of a thing that we have seen for depending on how you look at it, 9 movies, TV shows. Like so I'm with you on the we definitely don't need a season 2. I do want to see more of them, but like whatever. It's totally fine.
Do you think we'll see characters like Roken show up elsewhere?
I think they set him
up in like maybe Andor somehow.
Yeah, that final line with him of like, you are a leader, you need to continue being a leader, that feels like them setting him up big time.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to get a Roken series, but I think
he'll be there.
There's definitely there's a way of him showing up elsewhere. I really liked his performance. I thought O'Shea Jackson was great. Although it did make me laugh that everybody thought he was going to be Quinlan. Everybody thought he was going to be Quinlan Voss.
Yeah, like we've seen Quinlan Voss before. I don't know how that would work, but yeah.
It just made me laugh.
But that's another thing about this series that did a very good job, is like, just you were talking about the path and filling out some of those missing pieces of lore that do connect to stuff without being like, and then this guy was here and he spent 15 days here, and but like mentioning Quinlan in that room and seeing like all those different Jedis signing the wall and stuff. It's that's the kind of stuff that like, that is where it ties into Fallen Order. That is where it ties into the follow-up Jedi Survivor. That is like, and that's another thing I think a lot of people were hoping for, myself included. I didn't put a lot of faith in it, but I was hoping to see Cal in live action. That would have been super cool.
I was really hoping to see Cal in live action.
But
that would have been great.
It maybe would have been too much, because it's like, I think it works better as a story of Obi-Wan being like weakened and finding his power again, And I say that not in the pardon me. I say that not in the cheesy Anakin, you underestimate my powers kind of way, which is one of my least favorite lines in the entire series. But just in that like self-empowerment kind of way where he's realizing who he is again. And I think that having another full-fledged Jedi in kind of this story would have taken away from that.
Because the whole thing is he's by himself. Like, you know, he is alone.
He needs to find himself the protector again. And that's...
Yeah, exactly. And having another Jedi with him, it's like, all right, well, cool, there's two of us now. We can just, you know, deal with everybody. It'd be easy. That's fine. Let's start a new Jedi Order while we're at it. Why not?
Yeah. So,
it would have been too much. But again, want and need, I did want it. I wanted it a lot.
Yeah. I'm very, very excited about the sequel game. I'm absolutely... Fallen Order would have been my game of the year if it wasn't quite as buggy when it came out. Control was also buggy, just not as much, so that became my game of the year. I didn't fall through the world multiple times on that.
Yeah, I did that. I've been replaying Fallen Order because it was £8 on the PS Store if you have PlayStation Plus. So I was like, well, I don't have it on PlayStation 5, so what am I to do?
Did you have it on PS4?
I had it on Xbox One.
Xbox. Okay. I was gonna say,
and then I was like,
Xbox. I thought that upgrade was free. Then here's the thing.
So I've been replaying it, and I am once again obsessed with Fallen Order. That's what my point was going to be. Because his lightsaber is just
And there's like, we don't often get emotion for the connection to a lightsaber, other than like that was Luke's. But like this has a more detailed story as to why there is an emotional connection to his saber that he uses, and so it's it's unbelievable. And one day I'll be able to afford getting one of the Disney parks lightsabers, and we'll get that one. But yeah, it's not gonna happen anytime soon. But yeah, I do have the Anakin, like the Skywalker Legacy one. I do have that, but it doesn't. It's before they started doing the removable blades, so it's always this long. But yeah, yeah. Do you have anything else about this series that you think we didn't quite touch on, or anything like that?
I have one more tiny complaint, and that is I do think we were much like the Inquisitors. I think we were also slightly shortchanged with Hayden, and I think that is largely down to Lucasfilm and the marketing side of things, because they made such a big deal of him coming back, and rightly so. Like, you know, his scenes are fantastic, and that duel scene is, you know, it's like he's never left Star Wars, like, at all. It was just right back there.
Except he actually has like almost 20 years of like being better at what he does.
Yeah, of course. But like, to say they were like, Hayden Christensen's come back, and I was like, for maybe 3 scenes. Because there's no way he was in the suit for all that time. There's just, it's, you know, it's Mandalorian all over again. I think he was in for some of it.
I think he was in for most of it, but not some of the more extreme fight stuff. Because you can even see Ewan McGregor is not the face of Obi-Wan in certain shots. But like,
of course,
it's certain things like that. I think he wasn't in it, but I do think he honestly, in scenes where he's just where it's just acting and not like heavy stunts, I think he was mostly in it. Because I have seen him do like the walk and like a couple of other things, and it looks like him doing Vader in a lot of those shots. So I do think he was in, I'm gonna say like 70%, not everything, but like more than half for sure.
Because like the moment where he chokes Reaver, I was like, that's that's Hayden.
Yeah.
Because there's that sort of anger there. But I don't know, I kind of just wanted a little bit more from him. And it's like, we kind of all expected flashbacks. And that's why I thought there was going to be another one. So I was like, surely you don't get Hayden back and only have his face out for like one sequence.
Right.
Aside from the back to tank bit, which was cool. I really appreciate that. So I just kind of expected a little bit more from him. But again, I'm blaming that more on
the marketing side. Yeah, because I do,
and Kathleen Kennedy a little bit.
But I do think that it's also just a hard like, obviously they're going to sell the reunion, but like,
of course
I think it's a hard thing to probably convey with the fact that it's a masked character. Like, it's a masked character, and not in the Mandalorian way where it's still the same voice. It's also we still don't know if it was actually James Earl Jones or AI James Earl Jones. So I'm sure we'll find really that out with a gallery episode.
I was going to say, I really hope they do a gallery episode, because it would be fascinating to see how they actually did that. If they actually got James Earl Jones back, that's incredible. Great, sure, fine. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised though, just because that I mean, that's what they did with Luke's voice too. So, you know, it is what it is.
Oh, that was very weird watching that gallery episode where they had the stunt double and then Luke. I was just like, what is this?
It's a weird place with that kind of technology stuff where I'm just like, as long as the actors who are the ones involved, or at least somebody in their family, are saying it's fine, then, you know, to whatever end, if you're telling that story and everyone's cool with it, that's fine. Obviously, it would be a different story for me if it was like, if they were pulling somebody, like even the Tarkin estate was like, or the Tarkin estate, that's poor old Tarkin, passed well before his time. But like, it was given permission to use that face, so it would be a different art. Like, I understand that like some people have the worry about what it could mean, but like, as long as these rules are being followed where they do still need permission, I don't have a problem with it if it's done well. It was done passably in season 1 of The Mandalorian. It was done a little bit better in season 2. And then here, it's just a voice. So if somebody is like, listen, I can't capture that anymore, but if you want to go ahead and do it with the AI, I'm totally okay with that, because it's just like, if you need to capture something that can't be captured anymore and everyone's cool with it, that there's no ethical thing for me there, because like everyone's cool with it. So yeah. And
it's like, you know, I'm pretty sure Disney, even if it was just likenesses, would pay a little bit of something, or at least I'd like to hope. Hope they would.
Yeah, they do have to honor likeness rights. I think it gets a little bit fuzzy with maybe voice, but
that's kind of my issue, especially with like James Earl Jones. Is it's like, if they've just whacked everything into an AI and just sort of spat it out and not gone, by the way, this is what we want to do. That's when I'm a bit like,
it gets a little hazy weird there.
It gets a bit murky. But
and then you do actually have the worry. I am on the same page with people with the fact that they are not paying authors the way that they're supposed to be paying them with like legacy stuff that came in from the 20th Century Fox deal. Like a bunch of the Alien book authors are not getting their residuals anymore, and that is completely bogus. As much as like all this Disney stuff back here, like it's fucked up, and it should be remedied like that instead of just kicking the can down the road.
I mean, it's the same for the Marvel side of things as well, even just like character rights and stuff like that. You know, there's been the whole thing about like Ed Brubaker and saying that was it Ed Brubaker? I think
he made more from his cameo
from Winter Soldier.
Yeah, from making his cameo in a Winter Soldier movie, he made more than he makes off of the comics. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. So I would hope that, you know, Disney have slightly started to be like, oh, actually, maybe we should, you know, pull our wallets out a bit here because of how much money we rake in every year from these properties that we own.
Unfortunately, I don't think they will be until there's another change in power, because the man in charge right now, no. Dude is pulling the budget on everything from parks to movies to actor salaries, and like the whole Black Widow thing that happened with Scarlett Johansson's pay, that happened under his watch as well. So I think until there is a restructuring with the board and specifically with him, I think that is unfortunately not gonna be remedied.
I mean, we covered a lot.
We're covering the business.
Gone from I know. We've gone from like nitpicking editing to like law stuff to now business practices.
Yeah. So we can probably call it there then. But thanks again for coming on. But real quick, for those watching or listening, this here YouTube channel has passed 100 subscribers, so thank you for that. I want to show some appreciation for that. But keep liking the videos, commenting on them as well, because that helps get them in front of a little more eyes, a little more ears. If you prefer them in an audio only format, we do have an RSS feed. They're on podcast services everywhere, so do that. It helps me out. Come on, be a pal. But yeah, once again, thanks for coming back on.
Oh, mate, anytime. More than happy to.
Tomorrow, no.
You can I'll keep coming back for Star Wars. Star Wars anytime.
My go-to Star Wars boy. Perfect. Awesome. Well, on top of that, thanks again, and goodbye.